Good evening. I'm John Batchelor. This is the John Batchelor Show. The Federal Reserve, Obamacare, very large topics. In addition, the chair of the Federal Reserve is now open again for speculation because of the withdrawal by Larry Summers, the esteemed man who has served in many posts with many hats these last years, from the Clinton administration till the Obama administration. We begin, however, my friend, colleague, and co-host Larry Kudlow, on the topic at hand in the House of Representatives and in Washington, which is the continuing resolution. This is budget talk, and the Obamacare defunding. This is an initiative and a passion by a large number of House of Representatives Republicans wishing to combine the continuing resolution vote with defunding Obamacare. Larry's colloquy tonight with his colleague Robert Costa on this has news about what Mr. Cantor, the majority leader, and Speaker Boehner have now decided in this push in the House. There's been a dispute, sharp words, finger pointing in the House Republicans. And then we'll discuss the debt limit, a quite separate matter that will follow. Larry, a very good evening to you. Robert Costa reporting to you that Mr. Boehner and Mr. Cantor are going to go along with defunding Obamacare and the CR. How and why? Good evening, Larry.
Good evening, John. Well, there's a solid group of Republican House members. It's hard to know the number, but let's say for argument's sake 50. And they're very hawkish, and they wanted to go all the way and defund Obamacare. And it's part of the continuing resolution, the CR. The government will run out of money September 30th. And so they wanted to include this in the continuing resolution, defunding Obamacare, which essentially says, they believe it says that they would fund everything else in the budget but Obamacare. So they're not shutting down the government. They're merely not funding Obamacare. Look, I can tell you as a former associate director of OMB, much as I want to end Obamacare, okay, let me make that very clear, much as I want to abolish Obamacare, the continuing resolution by legislative rule only impacts discretionary spending, both defense and non-defense.
And not entitlements.
That is correct. And Obamacare is more or less 80% mandatory spending, in other words, an entitlement. So you're left with this problem that even if you carried the vote in the Senate, which you won't, but even if you did, Obamacare, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, etc., would all continue to spend by law. And the only way you can stop that is by passing a separate bill. Now, that bill could, accompany a continuing resolution, but you'd have to have a separate bill in order to abolish Obamacare. And, just like you had a bill to create Obamacare, you'd have to have a bill to...
And Harry Reid's Senate will not embrace any defunding of Obamacare in a separate bill, nor in the CR, and the CR is a gesture. So therefore, this vote will go through, and it will pass the House with the majority. It will go to the Senate, where Ted Cruz can speak on the floor of the Senate, and then we move to the possibility of dealing with Obamacare starting October 1st. Is there another way, Larry? Can the raising of the debt limit, can that combine this ambition for defunding Obamacare or delaying it? Is that possible?
Let me just step back for a minute. You must have a continuing resolution. In other words, if the House version, which includes defunding Obamacare, fails in the Senate, fails for lack of a vote, I agree with you there, somebody's got to pass a CR. Otherwise, for example, the Pentagon won't have any appropriated money. Veterans won't have any appropriated money.
Hasn't Mr. Boehner indicated that he'll already send over a clean bill on the CR?
What the original leadership position was, and this is where they'll wind up, is it'll be a clean bill on the continuing resolution at the sequester levels of lower spending. That's the key. And it's a big, in other words, we had the sequester for fiscal year 2013, and it was a lot. I mean, at 65 some odd billion dollars is, in my opinion, a terrific thing, good for growth and the budget. Now you're going to have a new sequester for fiscal year 14, which will be much larger than the 2013, and that's what the House leadership wants to do. I think they're exactly right. The president yesterday inappropriately railed against Republicans in obscenely partisan terms during this horrible shooting at the Navy Yard in a speech he gave, mostly around the sequester. And in fact, this dumb son of a bitch from the mayor of Washington, D.C. actually blamed the shooting on the sequester, which has nothing to do with it. Plus, obviously, the guy has a mental problem. So I'm saying the sequester, over which Democrats obsess, will continue for at least one more year under the Boehner plan, which would put it in the continuing resolution.
And then we move to the debt limit. Now, Larry, they can set the debt limit for any period of time they want. They could do it for 3 months, for 3 years. They could do it for a year as well. And in that, can they do anything about delaying the implementation of the mandate in the Obamacare?
No, it's the same problem.
All right.
Same problem. However, what Boehner has always wanted with that debt limit is to use that as leverage. He wants deeper spending cuts. His original idea was every dollar increase in debt has to be offset by a dollar reduction in spending. That was the Boehner plan a couple years ago in 2011. Or other reforms, meaning entitlement reforms, which could conceivably, by the way, include Obamacare. They might not get all of it, but they could delay it, let's say, for the length. I mean, that's my position. Delay the Obamacare, or at least delay the individual mandate, but preferably delay all of it. The taxes, the regulations, the mandates, delay all of Obamacare for 1 year as part of some kind of debt limit increase.
Let's underline what's wrong with Obamacare, Larry, because we've not come back to this with all these Capitol Hill maneuvers. Obamacare is sinking under its own weight. It's extremely unpopular in all the polling. The parts don't work. We'll discuss it in detail tonight with Ovik Roy of the Manhattan Institute. The union is rejecting it on the basis of contradictions and paradoxes. Obamacare left to its own cannot work. And so I believe that the mercy death here is to just stand back and let the president try to explain something that does not and cannot and will not work and alienates his own supporters from Obamacare.
But one of the problems with that is there is no verification of income eligibility
for the first year.
At the moment, I mean, they may fix it, but at the moment they do not have the ways and means to do that. If they fix it in 6 months or 12 months, they could use it, but we don't know that. And I believe that the president and HHS would just love to put the individual mandate through without verification of income eligibility. You know why, John? Because then they can sign up boodles and boodles and boodles of people who may not qualify and who were not budgeted for by the CBO numbers, but they'll be in the system.
And that will be fraudulent.
Not only they stay in the system, they support the system, and they'll vote for the Obama Democrats who kept them in the system. It's the most cynical ploy I've ever seen.
Larry Kudlow of Kudlow Reports at CNBC and Kudlow Radio on the weekend. We're going to turn to the Federal Reserve next. We'll come back to Obamacare later in the show. But right now, the question of defunding Obamacare. The news is that Speaker Boehner and Majority Leader Cantor will permit the Republican House to deliver to the Senate in an overwhelming vote. The Republicans will go for it. A continuing resolution with defunding Obamacare. There'll be a lot of blame shifting and finger pointing and Harry Reid stampy footy these next days. It'll be good theater. And then we'll move on to a clean bill of the CR by the end of this month. I'm John Batchelor. This is The John Batchelor Show.